Most people don't really think, they repeat. Look at your own beliefs for a second. The opinions you hold, the values you live by, the way you see yourself and the world. How much of that did you actually figure out on your own? And how much of it was given to you? Your parents shaped your thinking before you even knew how to question anything. Your culture defined what's normal and what's not. And the people around you, they were shaped the same way. So most of what you believe didn't come from deep thinking. It came from exposure. You grew into it. Now you have opinions. You feel certain about things. You think you understand the world. But if you're honest, how much of that did you actually test for yourself? Did you question it? Did you challenge it? Or did you accept it because it was easier? Because here's the truth. Thinking for yourself has a cost. It takes effort. It creates doubt. And sometimes it separates you from people. That's why most people avoid it. You see it all the time. Someone with influence says something, and people repeat it almost instantly. An idea becomes popular and people adopt it without really understanding it. A group decides what's right and everyone follows, because going against it means standing alone. And most people don't want that. They want to feel safe. They want to feel like they belong. They want to feel like they're on the right side. But safety and truth are not the same thing. So ask yourself something simple. Are your thoughts actually yours? Not the ones you picked up because they were everywhere. Not the ones you accepted because they made you fit in. I mean the ones you reached on your own through your own experience, your own observation, your own honest thinking. If you're not completely sure, that's fine. That's where this starts. That small moment of doubt, that feeling of I don't fully know, that's the beginning of real thinking. And that's what this video is about. I'm going to show you why thinking for yourself is rare, why most people spend their lives inside someone else's ideas, and why learning to walk alone mentally and strategically is necessary if you want to see clearly and move with real control. But I'm also going to be honest about the cost. This isn't always comfortable. It can feel isolating. It can feel uncertain. Most people avoid that. But if you don't face it, you stay inside a mindset that was never really yours. This isn't motivation. This is clarity. And if you're serious about this, drop this affirmation in the comments. My mind belongs to me. Let's get into it. Number 1, independent thinking versus blind belief. Let's start with the most important difference, and the one people confuse all the time. There's a big gap between thinking for yourself and just believing something because you were told to. But from the outside, they can look exactly the same. Two people can say the same thing and hold the same opinion, but one got there by questioning it, testing it, really thinking it through. The other just picked it up from their environment and kept it because it felt right. Same words, completely different foundation. Blind belief feels good. It gives you clear answers when things are uncertain. It gives you a sense of belonging, because when you believe what your group believes, you feel safe, and that feeling is real. Certainty feels good. Being part of something feels good. I'm not denying that. But there's a cost. Blind belief makes you weak in a way most people don't notice because it's built on something you didn't create yourself. So when reality pushes back, when new facts show up or someone asks a question you can't answer, everything starts to shake. Not always because the belief is wrong, but because you don't actually know why you believe it. Independent thinking is different. It doesn't give you comfort. It gives you clarity. And clarity takes effort. It means being willing to say, I could be wrong. It means questioning your own beliefs the same way you'd question something a stranger tells you. And that's uncomfortable because for most people, their beliefs aren't just ideas. They're part of who they are. So when someone challenges those beliefs, it doesn't feel like a normal discussion. It feels personal. Instead of thinking it through, people get defensive. They ignore the point, attack the person, or hold on to their belief even harder. You see this everywhere in workplaces, culture, even inside families. And it's not because people are dumb. It's because they've tied their identity to what they believe. So being wrong doesn't just mean updating an idea. It feels like losing a part of themselves. If you actually want to think independently, you have to separate those two things. You are not your beliefs. Your beliefs are just your current understanding. They can change. They should change when you learn something better. That's not weakness. That's growth. Truth has never come from agreement. For most of history, large groups of people believed things that were completely wrong about the world, about other people, about how life actually works. The majority being confident doesn't make it true. Truth comes from people who stop and ask, does this actually make sense? Is this really accurate? Let me check for myself. That mindset, choosing evidence over comfort, is what real independent thinking is built on. And it's rare, not because people aren't smart enough, but because it takes something most people avoid: the willingness to be unsure, the willingness to be challenged, and the discipline to keep searching anyway. If that's the mindset you want to build, drop this affirmation in the comments. Truth over comfort always. Number 2, why walking alone feels so hard. So if thinking for yourself is this valuable, why don't more people do it? Why do so many people still follow the crowd? Because it's hard, and you need to understand that clearly, or it'll hit you later, and you'll think something's wrong with you. There are a few reasons for this. The first is loneliness. When you start questioning things that everyone else just accepts, people notice. You stop agreeing automatically. You ask questions they'd rather avoid. You see patterns they don't want to look at. And slowly things change. You don't fully fit in the same way anymore. Conversations feel off. Some people get uncomfortable around you. You might not get pushed out directly, but you feel the distance. Invitations slow down. Interactions feel different. And one day you realize you're not really inside those circles like you used to be. Not because you did anything wrong, just because you stopped going along with everything. That kind of quiet isolation can mess with you, because you didn't become a worse person. You just became more aware, and somehow that costs you. The second challenge is self-doubt. When a lot of people believe something, your brain treats that as a signal. It starts to feel like this many people can't be wrong. So when you come to a different conclusion on your own, a voice shows up. What if I'm wrong? What if they're right and I'm just overthinking this? What if I'm the one missing something? And to be fair, that voice isn't completely wrong. You could be wrong. Thinking independently doesn't guarantee you're right. It just means you're actually thinking instead of copying. But here's the difference. You don't have a group backing you up anymore. So, you have to rely on your own judgment. You have to hold your ideas without constant validation. That takes stability. And you don't build that overnight. The third challenge is biological. Humans are wired to belong, not just because it feels nice, but because historically it kept us alive. Being part of a group meant safety. Being rejected meant danger. So your brain still reacts that way. When you go against the group, when you risk being different, it triggers discomfort, sometimes even anxiety. It pushes you to go back, to agree, to blend in again. That reaction isn't weakness. It's built into you. But it becomes a problem when it starts controlling your thinking. So yes, this path is uncomfortable. It can feel lonely. It can make you question yourself. It can create a constant pressure to go back to what feels easier. Anyone who tells you this is instantly empowering is skipping the hard part. But here's the part most people don't talk about. That discomfort is where clarity starts. When you're not surrounded by noise, when you're not adjusting yourself to fit other people, when you're not trying to meet expectations, you start to hear your own thoughts clearly. Not the version of you shaped by others, not the version that performs depending on the situation. Just you thinking honestly. Most people never get there. Not because they can't, but because they never sit in that silence long enough. The crowd gives you comfort, but being alone mentally gives you vision. Number 3, self-discovery through experience. Here's something I want to be clear about. You cannot think your way to real understanding. You have to live your way there. Real understanding, the kind that sticks, the kind that actually changes how you move through the world, the kind that holds up under pressure, is earned through direct experience. Not absorbed from a mentor, not built by consuming the right content in the right order. Earned through your own specific personal, often difficult encounters with reality. Here's the trap that catches smart people constantly. They read broadly. They follow thinkers they admire. They collect ideas, and they start to feel like they understand things they've never actually done. They talk fluently about failure, about loss, about discipline, about courage, but they've never been tested by any of them. That borrowed understanding is fragile. It sounds right. It feels real. But the moment reality applies actual pressure to it, the moment you're in a situation where you actually have to use it, it collapses. Because understanding that hasn't been stress-tested is just information wearing the costume of wisdom. You can read every book ever written about failure. You can know all the theories about why failure is valuable, what it teaches, how to process it. But until you've actually failed at something that mattered, until you felt that specific weight in your chest, that specific quiet of sitting with the consequences, that specific question of where do I go from here, you don't know failure. You know about it. That's different. Someone else's experience, no matter how honestly or brilliantly described, cannot substitute for yours. It can prepare you. It can give you frameworks. It can help you recognize what you're going through when you get there. But it cannot replace the direct encounter. This is why people who've actually been through things, real hardship, real loss, real failure, real risk, often have a gravity to them, a groundedness, a way of talking about things that carries a kind of weight. It's not arrogance. It's earned depth. Their understanding was built on something real. Your experience is your foundation. Nobody can give it to you. Nobody can take it from you. And no amount of borrowed wisdom can replace it. Now, I want you to drop this affirmation in the comments. Experience is my real teacher. Number 4, equality through independent thought. When two people who both think independently interact, something different happens in that conversation, different from what usually happens between a thinker and a follower or between two followers. There's no hierarchy. There's no follower and no leader. Neither person is deferring to the other out of habit or insecurity. Neither is performing confidence for someone who's looking for answers to borrow. Both people are operating from their own grounded thinking, from conclusions they actually arrived at through their own process. And so the conversation becomes a genuine exchange. Ideas get challenged, refined, tested from multiple angles. Both people walk away having had their thinking sharpened. Not necessarily because they agreed, often because they pushed back on each other in ways that exposed weak points and forced better reasoning. That kind of exchange is rare, and it's only possible when both participants actually own their thinking rather than renting it from somewhere else. Someone who hasn't developed their own thinking finds someone with a clear, confident worldview and latches on. They're not evaluating the ideas. They're relieved to have found someone who seems to know the answers. They adopt the framework wholesale. They start using the language. They defend the position with intensity. But they can't really explain why they believe it beyond because he said so, or because the community believes it, and now their thinking belongs to someone else. Their worldview is a reflection, and that means they can be moved, redirected, manipulated, disillusioned by the same source that gave them the worldview in the first place. The leader in this dynamic doesn't have to be malicious for the relationship to be harmful. The follower has simply handed over the one thing they should never give away. When you think independently, you don't automatically defer to credentials, status, or charisma. You listen, you consider seriously, but then you run it through your own filter. Does this actually hold up? Does it match what I've observed? Does it produce accurate predictions when I test it against reality? Does the person making this argument actually understand what they're talking about? Or are they just confident? That's not disrespect. That's intellectual integrity. And ironically, it's the only way to truly honor someone's thinking by engaging with it seriously rather than just accepting it. Blind agreement isn't respect. It's intellectual laziness wearing the mask of respect. The interaction between two independent thinkers is the most equal dynamic possible, because neither one is holding the other's mind. Both are fully present. Both are fully themselves, and what they produce together is something neither could have produced alone, because it's been shaped by two separate, honest encounters with reality. Number 5, the Machiavellian perspective. Strategic independence. People who think for themselves are genuinely harder to influence, and that difficulty has real consequences for people or systems that rely on predictable responses from others. Here's the follow-up insight, and this one's a little darker. Many structures in society can subtly discourage deep independent thinking, not through overt force, not through obvious censorship, but through incentive structures, through reward and feedback systems that are built into education, media, and social dynamics. Think about how education has historically worked. You are given information. You are tested on your ability to recall and apply that information in approved ways. The correct answer, the one that gets the grade, is the expected answer. A student who produces a different answer, even a better one, may face friction. The system doesn't always prioritize genuine, independent thought. It often rewards consistency with expected frameworks. Think about how social media works. The platform's goal is engagement, and engagement is often driven by confirmation. Content that aligns with what people already believe or want to be true tends to generate more reactions than content that challenges them. Think about social group dynamics. Agreeing feels good. It generates approval, validation, belonging. Disagreeing even thoughtfully, even with good evidence, can carry social risk. So many people unconsciously adjust. They let their thinking drift toward what their group thinks, because the cost of deviation feels high, and the reward for independent thought can feel low. Layer by layer, these incentive structures can shape how people think within certain boundaries. Not because anyone explicitly planned it, but because systems tend to optimize for stability and smooth operation. And questioning by nature can disrupt that stability. So when you choose to think independently, here's what often happens. You become less predictable. You stop responding automatically to common pressures. Fear-based reactions lose some of their grip because you're examining the fear instead of reacting to it. Social pressure weakens because you're evaluating the argument rather than the approval attached to it. Urgency loses intensity because you've developed the habit of pausing before responding. Any person or system trying to influence behavior relies to some extent on predictability, on knowing which patterns tend to work. But if your thinking is genuinely your own, if you've worked through your values, your principles, your understanding of reality, then those patterns become less reliable. Your behavior becomes less easy to anticipate from the outside. Here's the strategic principle that comes out of this. Every borrowed belief can limit how you think. Every unexamined assumption can become a weak point. Every idea you've accepted without testing can leave you more open to outside influence. The less you rely on other people's thinking, the less leverage external opinions tend to have over you. Not just in dramatic situations, in everyday life. In how you make decisions, in how you respond to pressure, in how you navigate conflict, in whether you stay with a relationship, a job, or a belief system that isn't actually serving you simply because it's familiar and easier than re-evaluating it yourself. Independence isn't rebellion. It's not contrarianism. It's not refusing to listen or refusing to cooperate. Those are just different forms of reactivity, defining yourself against something rather than from something. True independence is grounded calm. It knows what it thinks and why. It can listen without being swept away. It can engage without losing itself. And it's not easily redirected by whoever is loudest or most persistent. That's power, real power. Not the kind that requires dominating others, but the kind that makes you genuinely hard to move in the wrong direction. Drop this affirmation in the comments. My mind is not for sale. Number 6, how to actually start thinking for yourself. All right, enough theory. Let's get specific, because knowing why independent thinking matters doesn't make you an independent thinker. You have to actually do the work consistently over time. Here's what that looks like. Step 1, question what you automatically believe. Pick one thing you hold strongly. An opinion, a value, a core belief about how the world works. Something you defend with real conviction. Now ask yourself honestly, where did this come from? Did I arrive at this through experience and reflection, or did I absorb it from my environment? Can I defend this with actual reasoning and evidence? Or am I just confident because I've always believed it and the people around me believe it too? This isn't about tearing down your beliefs for the sake of it. It's about finding out which ones are genuinely yours, built on your real understanding, and which ones are scaffolding you, inherited, and never examined. The ones that survive honest questioning become stronger. The ones that collapse under it needed to collapse. Step 2. Pause before agreeing with popular opinion. The next time you notice everyone around you locking in on the same position, the same take, the same response, the same judgment. Resist the reflex to join automatically. Just pause one beat and ask, is this actually true, or does it just feel true because everyone's saying it? Am I thinking right now, or am I performing agreement? That pause is tiny, but it creates a gap between stimulus and response. And in that gap is where your actual thinking lives. Popularity is not accuracy. History has demonstrated that repeatedly. The most popular belief is often the safest belief, not the most correct one. Step 3. Spend real time alone with your own thoughts. Not scrolling, not listening to something, not consuming, just thinking. This sounds obvious and nobody does it. Most people are alone with their own thoughts for maybe 30 seconds before reaching for a phone. That's not accidental. Distraction is engineered to be more appealing than reflection. But constant input keeps you reactive. It means your thinking is always a response to something someone else put in front of you. Silence, real silence without an agenda, is where your own thinking starts to emerge. You start hearing what you actually think about something versus what you've been conditioned to think. That's a different thing. Build it into your days. Even 20 minutes, it accumulates. Step 4. Test ideas in the real world. Don't just think about something and arrive at a conclusion. Take that conclusion out into reality and see if it holds. The world is the best laboratory you have. Your beliefs about how people work, about what leads to success, about cause and effect in human life. Test them, act on them, observe what happens. When reality contradicts what you expected, don't explain it away. Don't tell yourself a story that preserves the theory. Let the theory be challenged. Update it. Your thinking should be continuously refined by contact with reality, not insulated from it. Step 5. Be genuinely okay with being wrong. This one stops most people cold. Being wrong feels bad. Changing your mind can feel like losing, like admitting defeat, like giving up ground. But it's not. Changing your mind in response to better evidence or clearer thinking is the mark of a functioning intellect. It means your thinking is alive, that it's evolving, that it's in relationship with reality rather than sealed off from it. Rigidity, holding your position no matter what. Because changing would feel like weakness, is not strength. It's a defense mechanism. Real confidence is being okay with discovering you were wrong, because it means you're now closer to right. The goal isn't to have been right all along. The goal is to keep getting more accurate. Drop this affirmation in the comments. Being wrong makes me stronger. Let's bring this all the way together. You don't find truth by following people. You find it by thinking for yourself, even when that means standing alone. That's not a slogan. That's how real understanding works. At some point, anyone who builds something real hits the same moment. There's no clear path, no ready-made answer, no group to lean on. They have to move forward without knowing everything and trust their own thinking. That responsibility is yours, not your parents', not your environment's, not the people you follow. The moment you hand your thinking over to someone else, you give up control. And there's always a price for that. Truth isn't something you're given. It's something you have to find. That means questioning, testing, being willing to admit when you're wrong and adjust. That's what thinking actually is. Not just consuming ideas, not just agreeing with what sounds good, actually figuring things out. Before I break down what this path really gives you and what it costs, if this video hits something real for you, hit the like button. Share it with someone who's starting to think differently. And if you're not subscribed yet, subscribe. This channel is for people who want clarity and the strength to act on it. Now, let's talk about the real side of this. What you gain from thinking independently. First, you start seeing things clearly. Not the filtered version of reality people pass around, but what's actually there. You notice patterns others miss. You question things instead of just accepting them. You start asking, why is this being presented this way, instead of just absorbing it. That clarity helps in everything. Decisions, understanding people, even understanding yourself. Second, your decisions become your own. Most people decide based on pressure, what fits, what's safe, what others expect. But when you think for yourself, your decisions come from understanding. They might not be popular, but they're yours, and that builds a different kind of confidence, one that doesn't disappear when others disagree. Third, you become harder to manipulate. A lot of manipulation works by triggering emotions before you have time to think. Fear, urgency, pressure. But when you understand your own thinking, those triggers don't control you the same way. You can pause. You can see what's happening, and you can choose your response. That's real control. And over time, you build confidence that holds up under pressure. Not because people agree with you, but because you've tested your thinking in real situations. That kind of confidence doesn't need constant approval. But there's a cost. First, it can feel lonely. When you stop going along with everything, some people pull away. Not always openly, but you feel the distance. That's real. Don't ignore it. Second, you'll outgrow certain people and environments. Conversations that used to feel normal might start feeling shallow. Some connections won't fit anymore. That doesn't mean you're better than anyone. It just means you've changed. Third, you'll live with more uncertainty. When you follow the crowd, there's always an answer ready. When you think for yourself, sometimes the answer is, I don't know yet. That's uncomfortable, but honest uncertainty is better than false certainty. And finally, you carry full responsibility. When your decisions come from your own thinking, you can't blame the group if things go wrong. You own it. That's heavy, but it's real. So, no, this path isn't easier. It's just more honest. Walk alone. Not because you reject people, but because you refuse to give your mind away. You can still listen, still learn, still connect with others. But at the end of the day, the final decision is yours. You think it through, you test it. You decide. That's the practice. Simple to say, hard to live. Worth it because the alternative is letting your thinking be shaped by whoever is loudest, most popular, or most convincing. And that leads to a life that doesn't fully feel like yours. Your mind is the one thing that belongs to you completely. Protect it, build it, use it, and don't hand it over. If this video made you think differently, share it. Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read them. Like the video if it gave you something real, and subscribe if you're serious about building a sharper mind. I'll see you in the next one. And drop this final affirmation in the comments. I walk alone. I think free.